Destiny 2 is one of the most visually stunning games that I've ever played. With that being said, one of the most frustrating things that you can encounter is an invisible barrier blocking you from exploring. Destiny's lesser known third secret game mode is called Out of Bounds, or OOB for short. And unlike most other games, you can quite literally gain skills and spec your Guardian's loadout to make getting to these places an easier time. In this video, I'm going to show you how to go anywhere in the game that you want, on each specific class and what class is best suited for what scenario. I'm going to break down in detail every single glitch, Sparrow mechanic, or in-game tech that can be used to break out of the bounds. None of the methods described or discussed within this video require the use of third-party software or cheats. The first important thing we need to discuss is what a map's box is. Every load zone in Destiny 2 is contained within what we call a box, which is basically a giant invisible cube of return to the fight mechanics that encases the playable area. If for whatever reason you were to get outside of this box and take one step into it, you will immediately be sabotaged by barriers that pull and suck you back into the map, typically accompanied by a turnback or instant kill death wall. Most players think that when they find a hole in the map that they've gotten out of bounds. While that may be true, there's still a giant death box surrounding you that stops any curious bone in your body. This video should hopefully teach you how to break out of the map's box for a true out of bounds experience. But wait, which class is best suited for the type of exploration I intend on doing? Until recently, Titans have always been the king of getting out of bounds due to one massive reason: infinite sword flying with Lion Rampants. Lion Rampant's description reads, provides additional aerial maneuverability and enables accurate hipfire while you're in the air during lift. Don't pay attention to the second part because really the first part is the only one that matters. As a Titan, if you equip Lion Rampants with any sword, then equip Catapult Lift, this will allow you to infinitely fly. This is one of the very first mechanics that I would recommend everyone learn before they even think about doing anything else, as it's not only just a cool thing to do, but can seriously cut down on your time spent in activities, allowing you to skip entire encounters in whatever activity you're doing. All you have to do to master sword flying is timing your jump and when you swing your sword. Your whole objective is to activate your jump ability for about half a second, and right before you start to fall, cancel your fall's momentum with the swing of a sword. Then repeat. If you get good at this timing, you'll eventually be able to float in the air, going in whatever direction you want for as long as you have sword ammo. For the ideal Titan out of bounds loadout, you're obviously going to want to have your Lion Rampants and sword, and the rest goes as follows. Equip a Glacier Grenade with these specific aspects and fragments. Apply triple grenade kickstart to your gauntlets and triple bomber to your class item. If you see the direction I'm taking this, you're also going to want to try your best to get 100 resilience and discipline. Most of the time when you're exploring, there's nothing solid to stand on, so always make sure you have a handy glacier grenade in your back pocket to help you with platforming if need be. Once you make this loadout, load up a patrol on any planet and get a good idea of how long it takes you to get your grenade back. If you keep your grenade regeneration at 5 seconds and use your class ability, you'll notice that we actually get our grenade back before our old one despawns. We can use this trick to climb up any wall of any height that comes in our path. Your stasis melee ability can also be used to create another platform if for whatever reason your platform happens to disappear before your next grenade charge is ready. You'll know your platform is about to vanish when you see the crystals start to blink like this. The last and most important thing that I want to explain about Titans is how gaining and losing height works when sword flying. Wherever your Titan was last standing on solid ground is the highest point that you can achieve. What do I mean by this? Well, here's a perfect example. After you defeat Savathun, you're never really allowed back into the boss arena, and even if you were to make your way up as close to the elevator as you can get, you'll notice it's impossible to jump up to normally. However, if we were to stand somewhere that's already at that specific height, we can then drop down, sword fly, and regain that height that we lost to get to our desired location previously too high. The next class setups that we have are for Hunters. Hunters can run the exact same stasis setup as the Titan while also having Shatterskate at their disposal. However, the Hunter's jump can be easily made useless if you're presented with a large enough gap. even if you were to shatterscape for more distance. A way better alternative for hunters now is to put on the Strand subclass with Stompies, triple jump or high jump depending on your preference, and all you need is the aspect Widow's Silk. On your gauntlets and cloak, make sure to equip triple grenade kickstart as well as bomber, similar to how we had our Titans set up. As Titans used to be the best, Hunters are now even better due to their simple ability to go in any direction horizontally or vertically, infinitely. Not really much to talk about here, as it's such a simple thing to learn and do, but can be an easy alternative to Sparrow flying. Once you create one grapple point, wait about 2 seconds and grapple to that same point. Repeat until you have 2 full charges. Every time you have a grapple, you'll notice this white flash on the side of your screen. This is the game indicating to you that you've received 1 jump ability. Once you start to become even better with Strand, you can incorporate rocket grapples or sparrows into your adventures. Last but not least, we have the Warlock. Funnily enough, Warlocks are the hardest class at first to do any out-of-bounds exploration on, but once you get the hang of Warlock movement, it seems as though it's the main class everyone uses to get out of bounds. Starfire Protocol can be equipped, or Transversive Steps, in the same triple grenade kickstart and bomber setup on our gauntlets and class item. Icarus Dash and Heat Rises are going to be your best friend for breaking maps as a Warlock. As for the super, this one is really up to you, but I would advise using Well of Radiance for the sole purpose of well skating to cover extremely large distances in a short amount of time. Heat Rises is a fantastic ability at the Warlock's disposal, which can be abused against almost any slanted surface to gain an absurd amount of height. The same effect can be achieved at a faster rate if you were to well skate into a slanted surface while incorporating an Icarus Dash to give you immunity to Architect damage. Heat Rises can also be used to mount and dismount Sparrows way faster, as it completely bypasses your Guardian's riding animation, therefore allowing you to dismount it immediately. These are some of the main reasons why you see speedrunners using Warlock, as it's the fastest class in the game once you've mastered the movement. When it comes to getting out of a map's box, the next thing we need to understand is what desyncing is, and how it can be used with Sparrows to teleport, as well as the effects of high and low frames per second. Desyncing is a byproduct of Bungie's spaghetti code, which allows one person to be in 2 different places at the same time. To make your Guardian desynced, all you need is a ledge to fall off of. While possible on controller, it is much easier to go to your settings and bind your second input slot for move forward to scroll wheel up. Have your friends stare at you and walk as closely off the ledge as you can without actually falling off. Using scroll wheel makes this a bit easier. You'll also notice that having a low frame rate will make even the smallest movements very aggressive for what we're trying to accomplish, so make sure your frames are as high as they can get for this specific step. Eventually, you will hit a sweet spot where your friend will see you glitching around like crazy and falling into the void. When this happens, have your friend shoot you to indicate that you have fallen off of the map on their screen. Congratulations, you have successfully created a desync. Whoever is not desynced is going to be the one to break out of the map. Have them simply set their Sparrow as close to a ledge as they possibly can, without falling off. They need to make sure they have line of sight directly to the Sparrow when it falls, so they should take a few tiny steps off of the ledge with 1 foot hanging off, whilst maintaining the Ride Sparrow prompt. The player that is desynced should now lower their light as much as possible. Simply going to collections and reacquiring the Dreamer's class item should do the trick. There are 2 weapons that the desynced player should also now equip from collections: the blue Aachen sniper rifle with snapshot sights, and the blue Madriguda with explosive payload. Void or solar doesn't matter, I don't know why there's 2. The player who is desynced now can shoot the Sparrow off of the ledge with the explosive payload, and directly after this happens, the desynced player needs to look immediately up to avoid updating the Sparrow's position for the player riding the Sparrow. While looking up, count out loud and give the Sparrow about 5 or 6 seconds to fall out of the map's box. Once you get to 6 seconds, immediately look straight down and zoom in with your sniper rifle. At the exact same time that the desynced player looks down at the Sparrow to update its position, the player that is not desynced will ride the Sparrow on the 6th second. You will instantly know if you've done it correctly because you'll teleport straight to your Sparrow way below the map. One important thing involving desynchronization is your frame rate. Having a higher frame rate will cause anything a desynced person looks at to become updated much faster than it would compared to a lower frame rate. So if you notice your Sparrow instantly teleporting when you try to write it, have whoever is desynced to try lowering their frames a bit. 60 is typically a nice medium. It's here now that we need to discuss the importance of Sparrow flying briefly. This video isn't at all going to be a tutorial on how to Sparrow fly because that's something you just learn with time. Even after all of the tutorials I watched before I knew how to do basic resummon Sparrow flying, what ultimately got me as good as I am today is just dying 10,000 times in a row driving off of a ledge until I learned that this specific input isn't working. Let me try this one instead. I will, however, say that knowing how to Sparrow fly, or better yet, infinite Sparrow fly, or slipstream, is one of the most valuable tools you can have on your side for exploring and going fast. I get hunters can also infinitely move around the map with grapples, but it's not even close to as fast as Sparrows. Even if you don't know how to Sparrow fly, definitely make sure you at least have a Sparrow with destabilizers and vernier thrusters, as these are the perks that make Sparrow flying as good as it can possibly get. Always on time is an easy choice for those who don't have one, as it comes with these perks by default. Two more box break techniques that I'd like to go over is balance boxing and deboxing. These are some of the more challenging box break techniques out of them all, and also require your frame rate to be at 70 FPS or above to recreate this tech with ease. The reason 70 FPS or more is required is because, as I explained earlier, the lower frame rate you have, the more intense your inputs are applied in game. Higher frame rates allow smaller inputs to be improperly displayed on another player's screen. What a balance box is, ultimately, is the same thing as a player desync, except the desync is applied to the Sparrow instead of the Guardian, allowing you to drive past barriers on one person's screen, but not yours. 66 FPS is the minimum FPS for this trick to be possible, as the threshold for getting kicked off of your Sparrow is completely unavoidable below that. To create a balanced Sparrow, jump in the air and summon your Sparrow. Hold destabilizers the entire time while feathering your W key until your Sparrow is perfectly balanced on its nose without kicking you off. If you've done this properly, you should be able to dismount and remount your Sparrow without it falling over. After you've checked if your Sparrow is balanced or not, give it one more little love tap on the W key. This will ensure that your Sparrow is actually balanced and is not a scam. If you're still on your Sparrow at this point, make sure you're still holding destabilizers and turn your camera around 180 degrees. Start boosting on your Sparrow while looking directly towards your destination. On your friend's screen, they should see you start driving out of the map. After you think you've driven far enough to escape the map's box, have your friend tell you to stop moving, and have the observer equip a sniper rifle and zoom in on you. The same teleporting tech that we did earlier with the player desync is about to be replicated here with the Sparrow. So make sure that the person observing the Sparrow has a low enough frame rate to not instantly teleport the Sparrow. 60 FPS is a good medium. The final step of this process is for the player balanced on the Sparrow to dismount and remount the Sparrow over and over again until they eventually ride the Sparrow at the exact same time that the observer updates its position. A couple things that I want to note about Balance Box is that several times you may think you have a balanced Sparrow, but the second you start to use your boost, you'll instantly start to fall over. The reason I said earlier to give your Sparrow a little love tap on the W key when you first think you got it balanced is to prevent this from happening. The last thing involving the teleport to the Sparrow is that having multiple observers or blueberries in your instance can result in you not being able to balance your Sparrow properly, or ride your Sparrow fast enough before it teleports. The reason for this is because there are multiple people observing you at one time on multiple different frame rates, and every person that has you on their screen is constantly being updated of your position. So if someone on 200 FPS is looking at your Sparrow when you get off and try to remount, it will instantly vanish before you even have a chance to ride it. Debox, or Desync Sparrow Dropbox, is a bit easier than Balance Box. All you have to do is have a friend equip a sniper and stand by watching you on a ledge. Bring your Sparrow as close to the ledge as you possibly can and park it without it falling off. Stand on the ledge next to your Sparrow and again step off as far as you can whilst maintaining the ride prompt. At this point, your friend needs to Alt-Tab out of the game or have a low frame rate for a brief moment. During this moment, barely tap your Sparrow with W. If your friend is on a low frame rate, that tiny W key input on your screen will be a way more aggressive shove on your friends and will knock the Sparrow off of the map. It is here that the observer tabs back into the game and looks immediately up into the sky to avoid updating the Sparrow for the rider. Once enough time has passed for the Sparrow to pass below the map's box, the observer looks down and zooms in with a sniper. Doing a countdown here for the person riding, similar to the player desync, would also apply greatly here. For anyone who doesn't have access to a microphone, instead of doing a countdown for when you look at the Sparrow, try typing a period in the chat and then waiting half a second before you look down. Two final methods of breaching are res breaches and Sparrow dismount breaches, most commonly used to get through a solid piece of geometry, floor, or gate, and are most successfully replicated on 30 frames per second. It's fairly intuitive how all of these breaches work. For a Sparrow breach, any area that you can pinch yourself tightly against a surrounding wall could potentially yield a map break. A good sign that you found a spot to try is if you get your camera to clip inside of your Guardian's hips. Dismounting towards the direction of heavy obstruction clips your Guardian's hitbox through the floor or wall occasionally, allowing you to fall through and explore underneath a map. Res breaching is done in quite a similar fashion and involves you using Thunder Crash or Stasis Melee to crouch your Guardian as tightly as possible against a ceiling. Stand here for a few moments to ensure that your res is set, and kill yourself without moving. The Dreamer's class item will work great for this. Once you respawn, spam your jump ability, and if done correctly, you should break through the ceiling. Okay, all of that Sparrow stuff is cool, but what if I don't have a Sparrow to break out of the map? IRB, short for Interdimensional Res Breach, allows you to set your location in one load zone and respawn at that same spot in a completely different load zone. This game-changing tech was discovered by Gerbsnail in the 2016 Toyota Corolla. A great example to demonstrate how the IRB works is in King's Fall. This humble frog was able to set his res location here at a specific spot by killing himself. Once he kills himself, that will set his spawn, and once the spawn has been set, he has to be extra careful he doesn't die again, as that would set a new spawn point that won't work. The next step Froggy has to do is die to a load zone. The way that this works is simply by just hitting the load for an area at an angle that the game doesn't expect you to. Hitting a load from a weird angle doesn't always kill you 100% of the time, so it's good to have a tiny bit of patience to learn where the sweet spot is. Once Froggy dies to the load zone, you can see that his ghost gets placed in the Thunderdome area of the Oryx boss fight, which is exactly where he was trying to go. The final step of the IRB is hitting an auto-res, or having another Guardian manually revive you by breaking out of the box and flying to your ghost's res location on a Sparrow. But there's no Sparrows in this example. Auto-reses are typically activated right when you start an encounter or right when an encounter ends, so for this instance, Froggy had 5 other Guardians complete the Totems encounter, which triggered the auto-res, bringing him out of the box to explore without a Sparrow. Another example of an IRB is shown here with Poofafish and myself. Poofa is seen here waiting at the start of the Val raid, waiting to kill the projection of Savathun. I progress further out of bounds and eventually set my res in the desired location. Do note that there must be solid geometry at the same spot in both loads. Now that my res has been set, the next step I need to accomplish is dying to a load zone. You can see here how I accomplish this by putting a stasis grenade directly above my head. Sometimes blocking the area around the load with stasis can help ensuring you actually die to it. We now return to Poofafish, who kills the projection of Savathun at the beginning of the raid, which triggers an automatic res, allowing me to finally explore outside the box. I ran out of sword ammo in this instance, so stasis climbing ultimately allowed me to reach wherever I felt like going, although I'd recommend a hunter with infinite grapples. Hopefully you guys have a better idea of how map breaking works in Destiny now. I know that there's some stuff I might have missed mentioning in this video, so please feel free to leave a comment or help out any newer players who are struggling to get the hang of things. I guess this is the end. Bye bye.